So, welcome back to Panhandle Pulse. Today, I got a great guest in Judson Stone. He's an author, speaker, and historian that I learned today from your site. So, thanks for coming on today.
I'm a homegrown historian. I'm not trained per se as a historian,
Okay, that's
but
the best way.
I love history.
Yeah, I'm the same. I always grew up loving history in high school. It was one of my favorite classes back then.
One of my memories is looking at World War II books that Dad purchased. He was a pilot in World War II, and I would, as a young boy, just pull one out and just look at the photos.
Nice.
And I always thought that the B-17 was his favorite plane, but it wasn't.
Yeah, is that because of all the artwork and everything painted on the bombers and the planes back then?
No, for me, it was just the fact that my dad transported those to
Okay,
Europe. And also, he loved aviation.
nice.
And so he bought aviator books left and right.
No, it's good for the shelf. So,
Yeah.
besides aviation and loving some history, tell us, the guest, a little bit about your background. How did you get to the area? And
Well, my wife said we're moving to Florida. I wish I could say enthusiastically that I said, yes, dear. Florida wasn't really on my radar. My two sisters-in-laws are living in the same development. So my wife wanted to live next to her sisters. And I've come to love this area so much. And I'm glad that I followed my wife. She got that line from my mother. She had followed my dad in all of his military and medical career. And in retirement, she said, it's time for you to follow me. We're going to Arlington, Texas.
and from where did you move from to Arlington before you came over?
We were in Maine for 26 years. I was a pastor. My wife is a registered nurse. And our three boys were born in Maine. We all left Maine. And now the boys and the grandkids live in York, Maine. And the grandkids all attend the York school system. So it
Nice.
makes it very convenient to visit.
Yeah. How did you find this particular part of the Panhandle?
Well, first of all, the mental image is Florida is for old folks. And it is, but there's a lot more to Florida than just geriatric people. There's so many different things to do. There's sightseeing place to go to, within less than a day's drive. There's the beautiful sand beaches that I try to walk every day. We have a recreational path on the Route 30A, that you can ride bike, rollerblade, jog. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, there's a ton of activity out here,
Yes, there is.
specifically in our area here. When people say everyone retires to Florida, they think not so much the Panhandle, they think over south, more
Yes.
towards that area,
Yeah.
the villages and that. But we have an amazing place here. Our water's like the Caribbean, and the activities are just tremendous outside here.
I've continued to be amazed that this area hadn't been built up
Yeah.
many years before it really started. This Santa Rosa Beach area really started getting built up. And the beaches are stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been coming down here for 30 years. We've lived here for 10. And just in the 10 years, the development here has been crazy. But over the 30-year history of coming here, it was from Laguna Beach, Panama City, all the way to Destin. There wasn't anything down through here but a couple of houses and maybe a gas station. And now it's tourist city. It's packed and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yes. As a cashier at the Publix on 98 in Santa Rosa Beach, I started picking up on a lot of negativism from the locals about the tourist influx. And, it complicates life, but it's also the livelihood of thousands of people, along in the Panhandle, along our route that we live on. And why do I want them to be harmed if we shut down tourism or something like that?
Right. Yeah, I think that gives you a good perspective because when we move down again, it's hard getting in because people don't like to see change. They don't want to see change in their area. And then at the rate that change has happened in this area is pretty aggressive. But for everyone that's moving here, as yourself and retiring, it's a tremendous opportunity. Like you're into out and about more than you would be in Maine for your health and livelihood. It's beneficial.
Yes. And that, that involvement, like at the store, it helped me to be aware of that negative attitude, but also the people that do come here are so enthralled with what they get to see and do along the coast. And people come back year after year because of the natural beauty and what they've become used to and familiar with in this
Right.
area.
Yeah, it's a special little place.
It is.
So is that what you used when you moved, down? So you're moving down, your wife says, "We're going to Florida, to a place that no one you knew down this way." So you started off at Publix. Is that a way that you used to get connected into the area?
It was. I really felt like a fish out of water, if I can use that
Yeah.
imagery here on the coast
Yep.
of Florida. Arlington, where I served for 13 years, I had such a marvelous experience there. We were there when the new Cowboy Stadium opened up. The Rangers went through a winning period. They have since, of course, won the World Series, but I got involved in sports ministry with Fellowship of Christian Athlete for local high school, and then for UT Arlington men's basketball team. That was my life. And then to come to Florida really was I don't know if it was a letdown or just a complete change. I
Right.
sort of felt like a nobody, where in Arlington, I felt like I was living with significance and purpose. Then I chose to retire, and we built a house here in 2018. Joining Publix did allow me to get connected to the community and start feeling a part of it. Our mutual friend, Kirk McCarley, became an acquaintance while I was a cashier. He was from the DFW. He's from Fort Worth. He
Alright.
went to University of North Texas. I'm familiar with that. I'm not real familiar, but I'm familiar with it. So we had some connections, some common things in common, and we've since built a friendship. It's that type of thing that lets me know this is home.
Right. Yeah, a connection is, definitely needed for wherever you're at.
Yes.
So, besides meeting with, Kirk, and how else did you get connected, from Publix? What did you do, beyond that?
Well, of course, we have a local church we attend, and we've participated with the 30A Songwriters Festival as volunteers last couple of years. I also ended up choosing to join the Destin South Walton Toastmasters. I had been a member of Toastmasters in Arlington, so I continued that. And then I left that for a while and joined the Destin Word Weavers, which is a Christian writers group,
Okay.
to help me write the second biography that I have since published. I've rejoined Toastmasters. And then I also sponsor the Toastmasters Club in the Walton Correctional Institution. They're called Gavel Clubs, and I help oversee the club. I pay for the membership, provide the printed manuals that they use. They use an old educational system from Toastmasters. And so many of these men want to make improvements in their life, become better speakers, leaders. And then I also preach there at the prison regularly on the second Sunday of each month.
And so how did you get involved with the, correctional center down here? Just by through Toastmasters, or
It was because of Toastmasters. One of the inmates contacted me. I was the president of the Destin Club in 2019 and 2020. And he wanted someone to help sponsor the club. Well, COVID hit.
Yeah.
That shut down that. When the state reopened prisons, Neil contacted another volunteer, Erica Averian, who lives here in the area. And so I worked with her and the chaplain to figure out how I could be involved. So I committed to attending the Toastmasters Club like twice a month. And then, like I said earlier, I preach on the second Sunday, and if a month has a fifth Sunday. So,
Yeah. And you do that at the South Walton Correctional Facility?
yes.
One of our earlier discussions, we were talking about that Florida is unique, specifically in the Panhandle, where we have a bunch of correctional facilities, one in pretty much every county: Santa Rosa, Walton County, Bay County.
Yes. I'm not an expert on the system, But I've been to the Santa Rosa prison to visit their gavel club. I've been to the Franklin prison, which is east of here, south of Tallahassee, to visit that, to visit that gavel club because men from Walton were transferred to those clubs, and I wanted to visit them. The one that went to Santa Rosa Beach actually started the gavel club. And then the one that transferred to Franklin was just being elected as the VP of education for that gavel club. So I got to witness that. I have a great respect for that man, his knowledge of Toastmasters, and wanted to encourage him.
So that's good that you felt, connected, and now you're seeing some, fruits of the labor of going
Yes,
out there and doing that and that spreading,
yes,
through them and helping, them choose a better life for themselves.
yes.
Good. So what other ways did you, get connected into the community? So you talked about some doing the youth sports path ministry while you're in, Texas. Do you do that here for the local schools? Because there's a couple I know, our son went to Seaside, and they had one of those, Christian, sports ministries going on. Do you do any of those at the schools here?
I have not. I investigated it. I met with the director, the local director, and just felt like I was in a new period of my life. I do attend sports events here in particularly South Walton, and but I haven't gotten involved in that sports ministry like I did in Texas. I don't have an answer as to why other than the one I just gave, that it's a different phase of life.
Yeah.
I do substitute at local high schools. I was there, Freeport High School last Friday. Had a marvelous experience, and I typically try to substitute at South Walton because it's so much more convenient.
Yeah. Since you live over on this side of the bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that is one plus to, the Panhandle here. We have a tremendous, education system, for our schools, and then the kids are pretty blessed with some of the policies that we have and some of the teachers in the area.
yes,
So it's a good system, and I'm sure you see some of that as volunteer, when you substitute there as well.
yeah. We have a friend at church. Their daughter's a senior at South Walton, but she's going to the Seacoast Collegiate
Mm.
High School, and she's taken all 9 courses, and she's getting, the starts of her college education this year. I don't ever see her in school.
Right, because you can do it all online. Yep,
Yeah,
we have some, my son's friends that do that as well.
yeah,
So they're gonna have, by the time they're done high school, maybe halfway to an associate's
yeah,
degree, if not that. I haven't looked at the curriculum. Yeah, they're advancing,
yeah,
at the Seacoast, which is great. And that school is actually, just expanding, just got done a major build,
yeah,
right over there by the YMCA and
yes,
that.
yeah. My younger brother, a year younger, up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, he started attending Northern Michigan University his senior year. Of course, that back then, that was in person, but the beginnings of this approach to education has been going on for some time. I'm not familiar with it personally. I don't remember ever hearing that I could take classes at Northern Michigan while I was a high school about 20 miles south of Marquette, Michigan.
Right. It's so much more advanced nowadays
Yeah,
with tech and online classes and community. Like we were getting into a little bit that in my last years of college, where you would be able to take some classes remote and that. But now, I mean, you can take them anywhere, depending on the fields that
right,
you're going in. You won't want a
right.
doctor to be taking their classes online, for surgery practice, but any other field that you're in, it works just fine.
That's right.
So you wrote a couple books. Did you write one before you came into the area? Or when you got down here, you settled in. You're like, I'm gonna finish publishing a book.
I got into writing a biography of my dad. As I indicated earlier, he was a World War II veteran. He enlisted in February of 41 before the U.S. had entered the war. And in June of that year, 1941, Congress changed the law to allow enlisted men to apply for flight school. My dad was an aviator at heart, even at that age, and he jumped at the opportunity. He passed the physical and became an aviator. He got to fly all over the world. He maintained his flying status. After World War II, he went to Colgate and then to Rochester Medical School, became a surgeon, went back into active duty in the Air Force, served in Vietnam as a surgeon. I just was very proud of him, and I felt like his story, at least portions of it, needed to be told,
Yeah.
recorded, and that's what I did.
And when did you, publish that?
That was 2016,
Okay.
October 2016. I got to meet the co-pilot he had on their journey to India. They ended up flying what's called the hump, which was the transportation supply line into China to supply the Chinese, because the Japanese controlled the shoreline of the Southeast Asia. And I got to meet that co-pilot in Fairfield, California. I was hoping that I would be able to give him a copy of the biography before he passed away, but he passed away a few months before I got the book published.
Okay, so he was a main contributor to some of the stories in there of your
Yeah,
dad.
I used that man had they had saved his World War II letters to his wife, and he had self-published those, and I was able to use those letters to flesh out that part of the dad's career, their career in India. I followed that up with a book about a great-great-uncle that became a young missionary in 1898, a small organization called the Arabian Mission. And they went to Bahrain for George to begin his Arabic language training. An emergency arose in Muscat, Oman at the other mission station. The leaders there came down sick and needed to leave. And they were operating a rescued slave boy school there of 18 boys. So my George Stone, great-great-uncle, became the headmaster of that for 4 months before he passed away and was buried in a small British cove cemetery there. And in 2020, my two younger brothers and I had the privilege of visiting his grave. And while we were in Muscat, I told my brothers, I'd like to ask you to pray about me writing the biography. So I spent the next 3 years doing that. And I published that biography in October of 2023.
Okay, nice. So you feel like, Florida gives you that, inspiration and quiet time to go out there and put your thoughts together to write? Is that something we can look for, people that's retiring and wanna become an author?
It's a great time for retired people to write. I don't really have a set method in terms of writing. I usually try to do it in the morning because my wife is not a morning person, so I can do that part of my life without taking away from her life. We recently took a trip to Europe to revisit some World War I and World War II places because I'm writing a biography of a great uncle who served in World War I. Turns out that my wife's grandfather served in the same location in eastern France in World War I. So we were able to visit Toul, Toul, France, where there were, for that grandfather, there were some what they called base hospitals. It's where the wounded and all would go from the front lines, which were not too far away. And my great uncle's unit was not a combat unit. It was said to be a unit that did whatever the true engineers didn't want to do. Repair roads, lay barbed wire, telephone lines, whatever was needed to do to make the roads passable, things of that sort for the soldiers and equipment that were coming and going.
Right. So did you and your wife know beforehand that you were taking that trip that, both of your past family members were in that area, or you discovered
Yes,
that?
it
Okay.
was through research. We knew that he had served at Base Hospital 51 in Toul. We also visited where her father, my wife's father, had landed with his unit in February of 1945 for World War II. And I never met Jan's father because he died in '63, long before I ever met Jan. And I wanted to somehow have her get an idea of where he landed and to sort of pay tribute to his service, for her benefit.
No,
Yeah, it was
that's good.
very rewarding.
Yeah, that's good to actually go see it while you're writing the book and being there, putting boots on the ground and walking some of the streets and that. I'm sure it inspires you when you get back to be able to complete and move along in the
Yes,
chapters.
I hope to get this published about the World War I soldier this year. We visited in Western Germany where my great uncle was stationed with the Army of Occupation at the end of 1918 and into 1919. We got to do some research on the family that he was billeted with in Hazatport, Germany.
Okay.
And that was very rewarding. It didn't produce everything I wanted, but I realized we were very close to that time in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Going through Europe, through Germany and all that exploring, you're seeing all the historic looking buildings, the little towns and that. Try to paint a picture here, not on the podcast, of how our little towns are sort of replicating those areas. So, like Rosemary Beach here is European type style. You got Alice Beach, which they're doing. We're sort of taking that themes and build them into our little beach communities. Did you notice touring there, coming back, seeing the similarities?
I must confess to you, I'm not really into architecture. My wife bore the brunt of the house building we did. It's a Florida cottage style house, but the parts that we were in France, there wasn't any similarity.
Okay.
France, as you know, it has so much longer history in terms of Western civilization. Real narrow streets in some of the towns and things of that sort. I was so enriched by making the trip and taking my wife, going together and seeing these sites. She had been in Paris before as a younger person, so she had some experience with that. And my dad visited Paris after the war in Europe ended. He transported personnel back to the U.S. He was in Paris 4 times. So I had that also in the back of my mind. We have pictures of the Arc de Triomphe, Saint Michel Island. Dad has movie pictures from that area as well as photographs that enrich our knowledge of his experiences.
Good. Do you think traveling through there and writing your book has helped lead you a little bit more into the ministry and serving in communities of others? Because you were speaking how they were doing that in history during World War I and the books and that, and you do a lot in the community with Toastmasters and your local church and that. Where was that brought up in your background?
Well, my interest in history, in one sense, is just the personal development. I didn't realize I was going to become so involved in it. My dad loved history. We know about the Stone family and the Kilbourne family. The Kilbourne was my mother's maiden name. Those two family ancestors came over on the same boat from England in 1635 and settled in New England. And as I talk to people, I realize that my parents and my ancestors who have saved so much has put all that at my disposal for the research that I've done. And so that builds opportunities for conversations. When I hear someone's in the service or has served in the service, I can ask what I think would be meaningful or intelligent questions. I can share my dad's experience, my wife's experience, my great uncle's experience, my son's experience, things of that sort. And that helps me to take a sincere interest in other people, which is one of my goals in life, is to learn to enjoy learning everyone else's story.
Yeah. Does that help lead you into the ministry background that you're doing now in the area with church and groups?
Well, that aspect of my life can enrich presentations I make at Toastmasters. It can enrich my preaching at the prison or at churches when historical examples apply to the topic that I'm speaking on. So that's been very, very helpful. I've also become, to some degree, sort of a historical resource for my brothers and the younger generation, which has been it's been a thrill to me to think that I have information that can be helpful to them,
Yeah.
useful to them. It's been very exciting.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm fascinated with history and everything that's from my family, my dad's, especially in the war days, and all that is one of my favorite topics through all of school. So I'd be excited to go through all of those. There's a lot of other topics in school that weren't so great, but history is definitely one of them.
Yes.
Um, and there's a good bit of that here in the area that we have history with the military bases being
Yes.
around as well.
Yes. The Armament Museum over at Eglin, it's free. And it is such a rich resource for visitors. If you've got grandkids and you're wondering what to do, take them to the Armament Museum. The former military planes that are outside the building itself, things of that sort. The displays inside are so informative, and I encourage folks to take advantage of that resource.
Yeah, we have a rich history of the military down this way with Blue Angel shows every year as well down in the
Yes.
Pensacola area. They fly by through here. So sometimes when you're taking your strolls on the beach right here in Santa Rosa Beach, you'll see military planes and that fly by, which is
Yes.
very
I've
cool.
seen P-51 fly along the coast.
Yeah.
Of course, we see non-military, but also military helicopters and transport planes, jets that are returning to base or leaving base. And I find that an opportunity to remind me to pray for our country, to pray for those that are serving in the military. I never did. During the Vietnam War, I didn't want to go to Vietnam. I wanted to go to college and play basketball.
Did that work out? Did you go play basketball?
It did work out for a very short time. I went
Okay.
to a small college west of Chicago. You won't believe this. Your audience won't believe it. It was called Judson College, just like my first name.
Yeah. So it's tuition free then?
It's now Judson University. Back then, they had a JV team as well as the varsity. I did make the JV team, but I came down with hepatitis in January. That knocked me out of basketball for the rest of the season. It knocked me out of being able to run track in the spring. I had run cross country in the fall.
Okay. So it was just for one season of
Yeah.
basketball here.
I transferred to Maryville College outside of Knoxville and majored in biology, but I never did try out for the basketball team. I
Okay.
did one spring of track.
Yeah. Then you were done
Yeah.
with that. So being in the area, you've been a lot of different places, Maine, Texas, and Florida. How are you fitting into one of the things that I get from a bunch of guests on the show is the doctors and the healthcare in the area. Being a beach town seemed to myself personally, we go through a good bit of doctors. Like my general physician changes a good bit because the area is such turnover. Has that been harder for you in the area being retired, or have you not seen any issues with the healthcare in here?
For my wife and I, it hasn't been a real problem, but I do know it is a major problem for some people, depending on what their health condition is and what the particular matter is they're dealing with, living with. Some of my friends go back to Atlanta to be with their primary care doctors or specialists. Others go to Jacksonville, Birmingham, New Orleans. So that can be a real challenge, and that's something that people at my age that might be listening to this program need to be aware of if they haven't relocated here. They need to check out the medical situation. There is a nice hospital here in Miramar Beach. My wife worked on the labor and delivery ward, which is called the family birthplace. And that had been a very busy OBGY ward, but they've lost some doctors, so they have to limit The patient load, for instance, again, people need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
I at some point, it might become a serious issue for my wife and I, but at the moment, it hasn't been. And my wife is a good nurse to me.
Yeah. So it's always helpful. My mom was a nurse as well, so it was less time to the doctor visit. She could pretty much self-diagnose you back then.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's something I think everyone should be looking at when they come down here and considering because it is a great area to live. It's great for a
yeah,
retirement area,
yeah,
but there are definitely just areas that can
yeah.
improve with
My
it.
brother-in-law was at the Sacred Heart Hospital for 20 days during COVID. At one point, he didn't know if he was gonna live. As far as I know, I've never had COVID. My wife came down with COVID. It wasn't a who am I to say, but it didn't seem to be a terrible case of it. But that's a dangerous virus, as we all know.
Yep.
And it was a hard time.
And you guys were in the area during that time, so being with your family members in Maine versus Florida, I'm sure we were a lot, freer state where we were moving around, everything was still open, there wasn't any, real lockdowns here versus some of your family members in Maine.
Florida was quite unique from what I gathered. I'm glad for that. For those of us that live in Florida, I think we've learned lessons from the pandemic. We're going to continue to learn lessons.
Right.
As serious as it was, we're learning maybe how to handle something like that in the future. It was difficult at Publix as a cashier, and the reason for that was trying to maintain distance, trying to sanitize things, dealing with customers that were upset with the amount of stock or the limitations on what they could purchase, the quantity. We had some pretty frightening situations in that regard. At the hospital, I became a gatekeeper shortly before I actually fully retired. And I had to make sure people were wearing masks, that the employees were either checking in on the app that the hospital provided or through paperwork. And they didn't want to do that if they were coming in just a few minutes before they were supposed to clock in. They were some of the hardest people to deal with. It could be very trying. And I've learned some things about myself, my own level of tolerance for pushback. I'm not proud of it per se, but it also helps me to know a little bit more about myself.
Yeah, that's good, and we're always growing and evolving, so that is a plus. We can get through anything from the pandemics to anything that life throws at you. It's a challenge for you to take a step and grow.
Right.
So what's some advice you would have for somebody looking to move into the area down here, whether it's, new people, retired people, or anyone that wants to come to the beautiful place of the Panhandle?
Well, based upon my wife and my experience, I am so grateful for the financial advisor that we had. He was not an in-person person,
Yep.
but he helped us to plan to sell the house in Arlington, to do the building loan, and to guide us through the whole process of building the house and then converting it to a mortgage. So I'd advise anybody that's moving down here to realize that this is an expensive place to live. And as a result, I would encourage people to make sure that they've got their finances in order and that if they're married or whatever, that, there's a mutual plan in place. That husband and wife, for instance, really want to do this. But I've already admitted that I was dragging my feet.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow back up on that. So you were kicking and screaming coming down, but, now you're so grateful that you're here.
Well, yeah, our house was paid for in Arlington. Why incur another debt? But again, my financial advisor helped put me at peace. He's managing what we had, guiding us. It really helped me, and I'm grateful. I won't be able to thank him enough for
Yeah.
how he's helped me personally, but also helped us as a couple. And I would encourage people to be willing to seek out a financial advisor. We trusted our builder, and he helped us to come under the cost by 20K,
That's
and
impressive for a builder in this area.
we again are so grateful for that. People that are coming here as retirees, they may have projects like I've had in terms of writing books. Maybe they do wanna check out substitute teaching. Maybe they won't do wanna do part-time work. I chose part-time work in order not to have to take my Medicare premiums out of my retirement until I fully retired. And so that has helped preserve some of our retirement money until then. That's another type of advice that I would offer to retirees in particular is what kind of passion do you have? What kind of interest do you have? Is there a part-time job could give you some peace of mind to put some extra cash in your pocket, even if you are using retirement funds? My substitute teaching helped me to pay for the book that I published in 2023, and I'm still subbing
Yeah.
because I really like it.
Yeah, it's also a good way, as you said earlier in the show, to get connected in the community. So if you just come down, it gets you a way to get out and meet people and get involved, so you're not feeling so disconnected when you're
Yes,
down here.
yes, yes.
So that's good. So, any plans? Your book's gonna be published, you said this year. You're working on a next one. Any titles coming up?
Well, written a lot of poetry. I've got a lot of sermons and devotionals. I've got a lot of website articles that could possibly be edited and put into book form. But right now, biography about the great uncle is preoccupies my mind. I don't have really another writing project beyond that.
So what we talked about the advice when you retire and you come down into the area, and we hit a little bit about healthcare on that, but you personally, that you've seen being in here, some big issue that could be resolved that would make your life or others in the community better, that you could 1 or 2 pinpoint, that you see would help the area?
The issue that impacted me personally was while our house was building, learned about the customary use controversy on the Emerald Coast here, which meant that private beach owners could enforce their property boundaries. And we had been coming here and able to use the beach just as it is without any controversy. But once that controversy became a legal issue, we could no longer use the beaches that we had access to right off of the boardwalk, the private boardwalk that we use to get to the beach. Tourists may have some real problems with that. The communities are also tightening up places to park, as well as trying to create parking lots, but some towns have put up roadside no parking signs that otherwise were traditionally used as parking and gave some convenience to either the local people who did not live on the beach. We don't live on the beach, but also tourists that want to be able to have access to the beach. This is a serious concern. I've learned more about the customary use issue. I know how to function in the midst of it, and so I'm a lot more at peace. But when I first heard about it, the value of our house, in one sense, depended on access to the beach. And I thought, we might lose access to the beach. Fortunately, boardwalk is a perpetual right of way
Yeah,
for those people in our development. But it took me through a emotional crisis,
yeah.
and I got angry. I've been able to resolve a lot of that anger.
No, I agree. I think, it's getting better now. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of non-information coming from our local commissioners and politicians and law enforcement and that could have been cleared up a lot of the angst that a lot of people had. And now the state's done some repeal and they're working on correcting some of the mistakes that they've made in the past, but it has gotten better. But that is still a huge issue that
Yes.
people focus on here.
I'm just have a better feeling of how to go about living with that matter. And I've come to accept what is. But not everybody's in my position where they're not year-round residents like my wife and I. They're down here for a short time, and they want that freedom that the locals and the tourists used to experience.
I believe you'll get back to that here. It's gonna take a little bit longer, but I think some of the changes that's affected will, get back to that point in time. So,
Yeah.
give it another couple years, and it should return back to the way it was, which should be open and free, clear beaches throughout the whole state.
Yes. When I moved out, well, my experience in Maine was that up there, the beach owners do have the rights on the beach according to the mean tide, that type of
Yep.
thing. It didn't seem as clear down here. So it was, in one sense, I came predisposed to believe that in some places, the beach owners truly have privacy.
Yes.
And that was what was being contested here because there was such a freedom.
Yeah. And some do. If you look at the property lines within all the plots, some properties go to the water edge and some don't. Some
Yes.
stop at the dunes. So
Yes.
you have a variation of rules and regulations on
Yes.
where
Yeah.
which property lines go where. So that adds to the confusion of it. So thanks for being on today's show. How can people find you? I know you have a website to look at your books. For our listeners on here, how can they go out and see your books and learn more about you?
Well, my website is Judson, Judson, the letter I for my middle initial, and stone.com. My book about my dad is a last chapter, The Greatest Generation, and about the great-great-uncle, A Modest but Crucial Hero. And they can find links to those books if they would be interested. They're on Amazon as well. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity of just chatting with you, Chuck, going through some of these things, and thank you so much.
No, thanks. It's been great. Everyone go out and check out Judson's website and read some books, and definitely we'll be doing that here in a short time. So I appreciate today. Thanks.
Thank you.